Matrix. They were old even when we were growing up, but they were there. Okay, and in those movies, there were these pills the main character ate, and there's a red pill and a blue pill, and again, we'd be 60 years old trying like explaining it, and so he offered the red pill, and so later we use the red pill to just mean knowing the truth, and they're like, and so one of the truths that we discovered was that humans were like wolves. So there's alpha wolves and beta wolves. Okay, and alpha wolves are strong and in charge, and betas are weak. I don't know, right? And these 16-year-olds will be listening to us explain our meme culture, while they're just like, Dad, can you just be quiet and hand me the can opener? Right, this is the last can of beans in the bunker, and I'm hungry.
It'll be one or the other. We'll either be in that future or we'll be in the Brave New World future, and we won't be talking to those kids at all because we'll just be in some sort of VR sex helmet, just being like blown by. I don't know who I'm trying to think of who like a like the quintessential babe of our generation would be, but I can't think of any.
There's no one. There are no attractive millennial women. Just facts.
I think that's true.
Or at least millennial female celebrities. We certainly do live in a generation that hates beauty, right? That exalts filth. That exalts, ugliness.
The way you said filth.
Aesthetic.
Little filth.
Right. Like, that hates strength, that hates beauty, that ultimately hates goodness. I think we do have this generation of people that, like, they like, here's my means, here's how I choose to express myself, and then they'll, like, fucking shave their head and dye it purple, right? Yeah. They'll see artwork of, like, wow, you see these, these Amazon or statuesque comic book characters? Let's make She-Hulk look like a gorilla. She was kind of this green bombshell lawyer. Let's make her ugly. Let's make Squirrel Girl ugly. And then, I'll say things like this, and people like me will observe this, and then they'll be like, wow, are you really mad because you can't, jerk off to She-Hulk? Like, first of all, don't kink shame me. Okay? And second of all, like, I think it is, this is, again, right, this is, again, it's the thing, and this, I think, just to give a hint, right, to the previous discussion, this is kind of like the affirmative action thing, or like the Black History thing, where nobody feels better from seeing like ugly women in comic books and in movies. Nobody is like, I feel better about myself, but men feel worse, right? And it's not about uplifting; it is about hurting men, right?
Yeah.
Where with all the black stuff that was on Netflix, and that was about fuck you, whitey. It was not about helping blacks. It was about hurting whites because they are white. And in this case, the pathological hatred of beauty is about denying things to the male gaze. The male gaze focuses on attractive things. Men like attractive things. And so it is important to destroy attractive things so that men won't like them. I feel strongly about this, but I feel strongly about it because of like seeing people who like destroy things, then turning around and mocking you for caring about it. A bunch of barbarians thundering through Rome and saying like, wow, are you Italians really all that obsessed over a fountain? Do you really care this much about a stone arch? Is this really that important to you? Does your culture revolve around a bunch of statues of fountains? Are you that fragile? Roman fragility, right?
Yeah.
We got to talk about fragile Roman identity. Like, yeah, I actually do like seeing good things. I do like being surrounded by good things. Yeah. I enjoy the sight.
This is why you have all those pictures of muscle hunks hanging up on your wall.
Right? Like, I don't like seeing
about being
ugly
surrounded
things.
by excellence and right?
Like, as it's like, there's only one thing where I do, in a sense, like hate beauty and like ugly things. In that I broadly speaking kind of preserve a minimalist aesthetic to all the things I own.
Brutalism.
And I like
brutalism.
Yes, and I like brutalistic architecture for government buildings. Right. But in that case, it is because I like the government to appear, hostile and alien. And so I'm making an like, it's not even that I hate beauty. I hate the government and want it to be ugly. I think associating the state with beauty does a disservice to beauty. Then they ask these stupid questions: what even is beauty? Who objectively defines it? But you have to know what beauty is in order for you to give me this middle finger.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when people say like, oh, like, or with art discussions where, you know, they'll put like a fucking load of shit on a canvas, and then I'll say that's not art, and they'll say who even defines art, and then like once I start like laying out a definition of art,
it's a classic. It's just them as some blue-pilled boomercon would say, not arguing in good faith. You know what art is.
Yeah, I know, but you know they know what art is. And here's how they know what art is. Because they'll say,
it's not like you said, I'm going to smear shit on this canvas, and you thought that was the same as a Renaissance painting.
Yeah.
You knew it was a rejection of that. And then I go, well, why isn't this art? You go, well, what is it? You know?
When I made the mouth sound art, and you say, I made this as a middle finger to people who think like you, like people who associate mouth sounds with concepts, well, fantastic. If you knew that when I made this mouth sound, I was referring to this concept, you had to know that in order for you to create something that did not meet those criteria or technically met like my articulable criteria, you had to know what I meant when I said the word art in order for you to give me this pile of shit, knowing that would place me in an awkward position, right? Because you wouldn't do it, right? You wouldn't do that if I said, hey, listen, I'm opening up an art museum and I want you to bring me some art. And then like you brought in, you know, like a Navajo rug or something foreign, right? Like I'm just like, you know, I'm making like, I'm making a sculpture museum. And then you bring in like maybe some Japanese pottery or something. You wouldn't bring that and give me some shit-eating grin like, oh, I really got Marcel. Right, because you would understand, like, oh, that still falls into the set art. Like, you know what is art, and you know that I don't have some kind of racial exclusionist definition of art. Right, you had to give me something that you knew I knew is not art.
Yeah,
and then they look smug and they're like, I'm so much smarter than you. But it's not just you know, an exercise in seeming smart. Right, I know what to do when I want to look smart, and that's not it. They are attempting to destroy things.
And then pretending that they're not.
Right.
Because then when you say this, you're making a mockery of art, they go, am I, or am I really just doing art? You know, what is art? And it's like, you know what it is. Shut up. Stop doing that. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Stop pretending like you don't. It's extremely, it's infuriating.
I mean, everything that's about to come out of my mouth will just be just a volley of just rage and frustration at these people. But again, I think people like us misidentify, like they do the Hanlon's razor thing where they're like, I think this is, or not necessarily, they're not saying it's ignorance. Okay, you have to be pretty stupid to think that the left genuinely doesn't know what art is. They know what art is, right? But then they'll move on to like,
it's paintings of horses.
Yeah, and then they'll go to like, okay, maybe it's rational incentive. Maybe they're just trying to seem smart. Right? Maybe no. Trying to seem smart, like, is what makes them fall in line with this movement, right? Trying to seem smart is okay. The guy who brings you a pile of shit and tells you it's art, he's not doing that to seem intelligent. The guy who, when handed a pile of shit, looks around and then, like, without someone like me to reassure him, says, I guess this is art, right? That guy's trying to seem intelligent. But the guy who brought the shit is not trying to seem smart. The people who agree, they're trying to seem smart, right? But these initiators, they hate beauty. They hate goodness. They hate tradition. They hate you.
I think we're getting way off topic here.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I feel like we've gone just off the rails this episode.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, Millennials, Zoomers, The Matrix. Who even? How did we get to beauty, defining words, euphemism, treadmill?
It's getting so weird and abstract.
Yeah. Okay, we're euphemism treadmilling, I think.
Which I'm fine with, but then I know you're going to say we have to talk about the topics, and then you'll keep me here until the sun goes down.
Okay, we were talking about millennials, and then something happened.
Marcel, we've been recording for 5 hours. Can we call it?
No. Millennials. I remember. All right. Millennials are a generation that hates beauty, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not, but I get your point.
Moving on from that, Andrew Cuomo has been in the news again lately. In a change so shift.
The Italian stallion.
Even the least observant members of our society have noticed that, like, who went from Andrew Cuomo being, the hero of COVID, basically. Like, of all the states, New York, which has by far the worst COVID numbers, Andrew Cuomo was sort of picked up as the anti-Trump, where Trump was this bore who, didn't trust the science and blah, 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 blah. Andrew Cuomo was taking charge. He was leading a multi-state coalition that was taking COVID seriously.
There was like a 2-week period where he was considered like the real president of the United States.
Yes. And it's interesting, too, because Andrew Cuomo, is a white man. He is like Trump, a New Yorker. He has a very similar, tone of straight talking. Andrew Cuomo doesn't really insult people, but that's really more of a function of, the kind of world we live in than anything about Cuomo's character, right? So Cuomo is, or either Trump is a bizarro Cuomo, but they're birds of a feather, right? In many ways. It's interesting that the Democrats did not pick, a black woman, or whatever to be the face of the rational COVID response. They picked 2 Italians. They picked Anthony Fauci.
They picked 2 old boomer white men.
Yeah,
who've been around since the 90s.
Yeah, they picked Anthony Fauci and Andrew Cuomo, right? They're like, these are the serious, right? Which you could say shows how. Which I think that may well be the biggest hint that Democrats, in fact, do take COVID seriously, right? How do you know that
they
Democrats
didn't put Ayan Hirsi in charge of it?
Right. Well,
not her. What's her name?
Ilhan Omar. Yeah. How do you know that Democrats are really afraid of COVID because they put 2 white people in charge of it? They're not bullshitting you. They really are afraid. But now that the election is, or now that the inauguration is over, Andrew Cuomo is getting canceled. He's getting Me Too'd.
I don't think that's why. I think it's because the bodies are piling up.
No, I don't believe that.
You don't think it has anything to do with the housing, the nursing home crisis?
No, because you have this whole time to get him on the nursing home thing. And they're only now waiting until Trump is out of office, and they're not even getting him for that, right? Because they still got to preserve that narrative of the COVID. Like, they still need to preserve the narrative that blue states are good at managing COVID. So
that's why the argument is that this the thing about them covering it up that leaked, and that's why they brought out the sexual harassment thing to change the headline, and that if they need to, they will cancel him via the sexual harassment. So that way we'll all forget that he murdered all these old people and that it was starting to leak, that they knew about it and covered it up because, quote, it doesn't look good.
Okay. This is not
so
too
the idea
far.
Is like Cuomo is going down one way or the other, but if we let him go down for the COVID thing, that implicates us. But if we can get him on a sexual thing, then no one will talk about the COVID thing, and we can just get him out of there quietly without sort of anyone else getting hit by the splatter. It's like, then it'll be the problem with Andrew Cuomo was not his COVID response. His COVID response was perfect, as we discussed. The problem with Andrew Cuomo was that he was a white man, probably a rapist, as they all are, and therefore we just needed a black woman in a wheelchair to have been running the COVID response the exact same way that he ran it, and it would have been perfect.
Yeah, it's
the
actually
problems
really
are always individual; they're never systemic.
We need to also grapple with a problem with our narrative in that when we talk about Epstein, and when I was talking about Trump rising above his station, all politicians have dirt on them, right? You don't get to be governor of New York without powerful people having things on you. That's just right. That's just not in the cards. And this is why I said before that Donald Trump, if he tried to become mayor of New York City or governor, even as a Republican, he wouldn't have run into the problems because they had sufficient dirt on Trump that was that they could have controlled him as governor, right? And plus a lot of the issues in which they normally hit him on. If Donald Trump was running for New York City governor, New York City's mayor, he's not going to. Well, if you're mayor of New York City, you're basically governor of the state, but he wouldn't have had a chance to talk about illegal immigration, he would have mainly been talking about like union stuff and maybe, busting corruption, bad deals. The taxpayers of the city are getting ripped off. New Yorkers love that, right? New Yorkers love hearing that they're getting ripped off and some guy's about to help them not get ripped